The Prime Minister's appeal for us to stop being bashful about being British came in the wake of the so-called Trojan horse plot, claims that conservative Muslim governors had tried to influence some Birmingham schools.
Belief in personal and social responsibility and respect for British institutions. Those are the sorts of things that I would hope would be inculcated into the curriculum in any school in Britain, whether it was a private school, state school, faith-based school, free school.
But perhaps Mr Cameron should have gone further and issued a call for a return to what it used to mean to be British. Stiff upper-lipped, unassuming, muddling through, rather than the feckless, obese, self-deluding, self-obsessed whingers we've become, indebted, bullied by a liberal elite and dumbed down by popular culture. Or at least that's what the columnist Rod Liddle argues in his new book, Selfish Whining Monkeys. Well, Rod Liddle joins me now, along with the writer Yasmin Alibhai-Brown. Rod Liddle first. Yasmin Alibhai-Brown here describes herself as lefty liberal, anti-racist, feminist Muslim. She's proud of those labels. You don't think she should be?
No, it's perfectly reasonable to be proud of those labels. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
But your book rails against lefty liberals and feminist Muslims?
No, it doesn't. It certainly doesn't rail against feminist Muslims. It's very much in favour of feminist Muslims, and I wish there were a lot more of them. It rails against people who pretend to be left-wing and people who are basically sort of civilised middle-class liberals who cloak their economic self-interest under a cloak of what they would call leftism, but which isn't really leftism.
So, well, if you're really railing against phonyism, you are definitely railing against mass immigration, which you say have made life worse for white working class people. A lot of people would agree with that, but with you it's kind of dog whistle stuff, isn't it? I mean, don't you really have a problem with Muslims? You say in the book you dislike Islam.
Oh, I'm not terribly keen on Islam because I'm not in favour of what it seems to lend itself to a certain homophobia. I don't agree with its views in most Islamic states on apostasy. I don't agree with its views towards women. That's why I'm not particularly keen on Islam.
An entire religion? I mean, you just dismiss an entire religion there.
I haven't dismissed it. I've just said the things about it which I don't particularly like, you know.
Yasmin Alibhai-Brown.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about Mr. Liddle is that he tries so very hard to be reasonable and not to be bigoted, but actually the bigotry just bursts out of him, because if you read the book, if you read his columns, if you read what he said about the defendants of Stephen Lawrence's the killers, what he said about Harriet Harman, he defends feminism, the most repulsive things he said about women. And for him, people like me are the problem. But you know what, Mr. Liddle? The thing that destroyed white working class people were your boss, Rupert Murdoch, from whom we get hundreds and thousands of pounds every year, and Margaret Thatcher. She took away the structure of the society, not Mr. Khan down the road.
I'm having a great deal of trouble following this particular train of thought. I don't really know where it starts or goes on. I don't know what I said about the killers of Stephen Lawrence.
Oh, yes, you should, because there was a big furore about it.
Well, I
think you've got the wrong end of the stick, as usual.
Well, what about Harriet Harman, then? You said, you wrote in The Spectator, Harriet Harman, then, would you? I mean, after a few beers, obviously, not while you were sober.
And apologised, yeah. What I was trying to do was make a point. I was trying to parody a certain sort of laddishness which didn't come across, and I apologised for that at the time.
And then you apologised as well for calling the Woolwich killers, who were absolutely...
You liked them,
No,
did you?
I do not like them. I knew what you were going to say. But you apologised for calling them black savages. Did you not? You apologised.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. Yes, actually you did. Actually you did. You said you shouldn't have used the word black. What a lot of apologies. Like I said, you're trying to be good, but this bigotry bursts out of you.
But the problem is, you see, as I mentioned in the book, which is actually not about race whatsoever. There's virtually nothing about... Hang on a second. Well, it touches on it in order to say that the things which we did, the things which I admire about the previous generation, the only thing really which we have on them is that we're less discriminatory, we're less racist than that generation, and that's a good thing. Now, you wouldn't get that, obviously, from listening to your questions or Yasmin's bizarre rants. But, you know, you take something that I do mention in the book about Yasmin, for example.
Well, I was going to quote that.
Yes.
He accuses you of a screed of hatred for accusing working-class white men of provoking race riots, tarring an entire community with one broad sweep sweep of your lavatory brush. Imagine such a venomous ad hominem attack being
Yeah, I
made
got a
against
bit-
another section of society, perhaps a non-white section of society. You'd never
Yeah,
work again.
I got a bit part in his book, very good. This was Fame. I wrote another piece today in the Daily Mail saying, I, as an immigrant, have worked after this report yesterday that education levels are higher in immigrant communities than white working class children, that I have worked personally with a number of white working class kids to bring them on in education. I don't hate them. I don't hate them. I don't hate them, Rod. But when when I'm attacked, when actually a rag with fire is put through my letterbox, it's very hard to love people who do that.
Yes, but that again wasn't the white working class that did
How do you know?
was it?
They were
It wasn't
arrested,
the
and they
entire
were,
white
actually.
working class. You see, the point is the reason I admire Yasmin is at least she's honest. Unlike you and most of the other liberal, faux liberal left, she
I'm
actually.
faux liberal left,
Well,
right.
of course you are. At least she is absolutely clear about her loathing for the working class, as she
And you,
says.
I'm clearly honest that I loathe you. I have no words to express how much I loathe you.
Well,
and in that, I feel quite proud that I'm able to tell you that. And
How
we
do you feel
don't
about
kill
that?
each other.
I feel warm inside, and I'd like to embrace Yasmin for
Oh,
for
don't.
saying that. I really would.
Please don't.
I think
But
there's a certain
But you have a go of
derangement.
her
I
about
can't
screed of
imagine anything
hatred.
Yeah.
Your screed of hatred. I mean, you
Where's
talk
my
about
screed
your
of hatred?
generation, feckless, irresponsible, endlessly selfish, whining, avaricious, self-deluding, self-obsessed, spoilt and
Yes,
corrupt.
it's a
That's
summing
a screed
up.
of hatred.
It's not a screed of hatred. It's a
screed of
summing-
bile.
It's a summing up of what of the bad things which I think have happened to us over the last 40 years, and which you're not interested in because you're just interested in whether or not I'm a bigot. Which and incidentally,
I haven't used the bigot word. You brought that up.
you used it in the headline at the very front of the
Well,
programme.
just now. I haven't.
But you
Are
used
you a
it
bigot?
right,
then?
and of
Well, are
course
you
I'm
a
not a
bigot?
bigot. No.
And do you really think that the time when you were growing up was a good time if you were black or you were a woman or you were even working class?
No, my
Are you
point-
not just full of what Will Self said, bilious nostalgia?
My point was that I think that is something that we have over that generation. That I think it was, that we are far less discriminatory against gay people, against women, against black and ethnic minorities. I think that is somewhere that we have definitely improved.
Okay, but
However,
you berate
I think
an
there are,
entire-
hang on, I think there are things that we have lost since then, and I think a lot of people agree with me about that, and some of those things are a certain communitarianness.
Okay.
We're far less
Very
communitarian
briefly,
than we used to
you
be.
berate an entire generation. Maybe it's just you, though.
I don't think it's just me. I did wonder about that. It could be, but I don't think so, because talking to people and reading about the way we've become and looking at the levels of debt in society, at the broken marriages and so on, it seems to be a society-wide thing.
Rod Liddle, Yasmin Alibhai-Brown, thank you very much for joining me. John.